Section 41 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Buchanan. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bencraft Joly. Chapter 18, Part 1. His Majesty shows magnanimous bounty. The imperial consort Yuan pays a visit to her parents. The happiness of a family gathering. Pao yü displays his polished talents. But let us resume our story. A servant came, at this moment, to report that for the works in course of execution, they were waiting for gauze and damask silk to paste on various articles, and that they requested lady Feng to go and open the depot for them to take the gauze and silk; while another servant also came to ask lady Feng to open the treasury for them to receive the gold and silver ware; and as madame Wang, the waiting maids, and the other domestics of the upper rooms had all no leisure, Pao ch'ai suggested: "Don't let us remain in here and be in the way of their doing what there is to be done, and of going where they have to go;" and saying this, she betook herself, escorted by Pao yü and the rest, into Ying Ch'un's rooms. Madame Wang continued day after day in a great state of flurry and confusion, straight up to within the 10th moon, by which time every arrangement had been completed, and the overseers had all handed in a clear statement of their accounts. The curios and writing materials, wherever needed, had all already been laid out and everything got ready; and the birds and animals, from the stork, the deer and rabbits, to the chickens, geese and the like, had all been purchased and handed over to be reared in the various localities in the garden; and over at Chia Si's had also been learnt 20 miscellaneous plays, while a company of young nuns and Taoist priestesses had likewise, the whole number of them, mastered the intonation of Buddhist classics and incantations. Chia Cheng, after this, at length, was slightly composed in mind and cheerful at heart; and having further invited dowager lady Chia and other inmates to go into the garden, he deliberated with them on, and made arrangements for, every detail in such a befitting manner that not the least trifle remained for which suitable provision had not been made; and Chia Cheng eventually mustered courage to indite a memorial, and on the very day on which the memorial was presented, a decree was received fixing upon the 15th day of the 1st moon of the ensuing year, the very day of the Shang Yuan festival, for the honourable consorts to visit their homes. Upon the receipt of this decree, with which the Chia family was honoured, they had still less leisure, both by day as well as by night, so much so that they could not even properly observe the New Year festivities. But in a twinkle of the eye, the festival of the full moon of the 1st moon drew near, and beginning from the 8th day of the 1st moon, eunuchs issued from the palace and inspected beforehand the various localities, the apartments in which the imperial consort was to change her costume, the place where she would spend her leisure moments, the spot where she would receive the conventionalities, the premises where the banquets would be spread, the quarters where she would retire for rest. There were also eunuchs who came to assume the patrol of the grounds and the direction of the defences; and they brought along with them a good many minor eunuchs, whose duty it was to look after the safety of the various localities, to screen the place with enclosing curtains, to instruct the inmates and officials of the Chia mansion whether to go out and whence to come in from, what side the viands should be brought from, where to report matters, and in the observance of every kind of etiquette; and for outside the mansion, there were, on the other hand, officers from the Board of Works and a superintendent of the police, of the 5 cities, in charge of the sweeping of the streets and roads, and the clearing away of loungers; while Chia She and the others superintended the workmen in such things as the manufacture of flowered lanterns and fireworks. The 14th day arrived, and everything was in order; but on this night, one and all, whether high or low, did not get a wink of sleep; and when the 15th came, every one, at the 5th watch, beginning from dowager lady Chia and those who enjoyed any official status, appeared in full gala dress, according to their respective ranks. In the garden, the curtains were, by this time, flapping like dragons, the portieres flying about like phoenixes with variegated plumage. Gold and silver glistened with splendour; pearls and precious gems shed out their brilliant lustre. The tripod censers burnt the Pai Ho incense, in the vases were placed evergreens. Silence and stillness prevailed, and not a man ventured so much as to cough. Chia She and the other men were standing outside the door giving on to the street on the west, and old lady Chia and the other ladies were outside the main entrance of the Jung mansion at the head of the street, while at the mouth of the lane were placed screens to rigorously obstruct the public gaze. They were unable to bear the fatigue of any further waiting, when, at an unexpected moment, a eunuch arrived on horseback, and Chia Cheng went up to meet him, and ascertain what tidings he was the bearer of. "It's as yet far too early," rejoined the eunuch, "for at 1 o'clock her highness will have her evening repast, and at 2 she has to betake herself to the palace of Precious Perception to worship Buddha. At 5 she will enter the palace of Great Splendour to partake of a banquet and to see the lanterns; after which she will request His Majesty's permission, so that, I'm afraid, it won't be earlier than 7 before they set out." Lady Feng's ear caught what was said. "If such be the case," she interposed, "may it please your venerable ladyship, and you, my lady, to return for a while to your apartments and wait, and if you come when it's time, you'll be here none too late." Dowager lady Chia and the other ladies immediately left for a time and suited their own convenience; and as everything in the garden devolved upon lady Feng to supervise, she ordered the butlers to take the eunuchs and give them something to eat and drink; and at the same time she sent word that candles should be brought in, and that the lanterns in various places should be lit. But unexpectedly was heard from outside the continuous patter of horses running, whereupon about 10 eunuchs hurried in gasping and out of breath. They clapped their hands, and the several eunuchs who had come before, understanding the signal and knowing that the party had arrived, stood in their respective positions; while Chia She, at the head of all the men of the clan, remained at the western street door, and dowager lady Chia, at the head of the female relatives of the family, waited outside the principal entrance to do the honours. For a long interval, everything was plunged in silence and quiet, when suddenly 2 eunuchs on horseback were espied advancing with leisurely step. Reaching the western street gate, they dismounted, and, driving their horses beyond the screens, they forthwith took their stand facing the west. After another long interval, a second couple arrived, and went likewise through the same proceedings. In a short time drew near about 10 couples, when at length were heard the gentle strains of music, and couple by couple advanced with banners, dragons, with fans made with phoenix feathers, and Pallas flabella of pheasant plumes, and those besides who carried gold washed censers burning imperial incense. Next in order was brought past a state umbrella of golden yellow, with crooked handle and embroidered with 7 phoenixes; after which quickly followed the crown, robe, girdle and shoes. There were likewise eunuchs who took a part in the procession, holding scented handkerchiefs and embroidered towels, cups for rinsing the mouth, dusters and other such objects; and company after company went past, when, at the rear, approached with stately step 8 eunuchs carrying an imperial sedan chair, of golden yellow, with a gold knob and embroidered with phoenixes. Old lady Chia and the other members of the family hastily fell on their knees, but a eunuch came over at once to raise her ladyship and the rest, and the imperial chair was thereupon carried through the main entrance, the ceremonial gate, and into a court on the eastern side, at the door of which stood a eunuch, who prostrated himself and invited her highness to dismount and change her costume. Having forthwith carried her inside the gate, the eunuchs dispersed, and only the maids of honour and ladies in waiting ushered Yuan Ch'un out of the chair, when what mainly attracted her eye in the park was the brilliant lustre of the flowered lamps of every colour, all of which were made of gauze or damask, and were beautiful in texture and out of the common run; while on the upper side was a flat lantern with the inscription of 4 characters: "Regarded by His Majesty's benevolence and permeated by his benefits." Yuan Ch'un entered the apartment and effected the necessary changes in her toilet; after which, she again egressed and, mounting her chair, she made her entry into the garden, when she perceived the smoke of incense whirling and twirling, and the reflection of the flowers confusing the eyes. Far and wide, the rays of light shed by the lanterns intermingled their brilliancy, while from time to time fine strains of music sounded with clamorous din. But it would be impossible to express adequately the perfect harmony in the aspect of this scene, and the grandeur of affluence and splendour. The imperial consort of the Chia family, we must now observe, upon catching sight from the interior of her chair, of the picture presented within as well as without the confines of this garden, shook her head and heaved a sigh. "What lavish extravagance! What excessive waste!" she soliloquised. But of a sudden was again seen a eunuch who, on his knees, invited her to get into a boat; and the Chia consort descended from the chair and stepped into the craft, when the expanse of a limpid stream met her gaze, whose grandeur resembled that of the dragon in its listless course. The stone banisters on each side were one mass of air tight lanterns, of every colour, made of crystal or glass, which threw out a light like the lustre of silver or the brightness of snow. The willow, almond, and the whole lot of trees on the upper side were, it is true, without blossom and leaves; but pongee and damask silks, paper and lustring had been employed, together with rice paper, to make flowers of, which had been affixed on the branches. Upon each tree were suspended thousands of lanterns, and what is more, the lotus and aquatic plants, the ducks and waterfowl in the pond had all, in like manner, been devised out of conchs and clams, plumes and feathers. The various lanterns above and below vied in refulgence. In real truth it was a crystal region, a world of pearls and precious stones. On board the boat were also every kind of lanterns representing such designs as are used on flower pots, pearl-laden portieres, embroidered curtains, oars of cinnamon wood, and paddles of magnolia, which need not, of course, be minutely described. They entered a landing with a stone curb, and on this landing was erected a flat lantern upon which were plainly visible the four characters: "The Persicary Beach and Flower laden Bank." But, reader, you have heard how these four characters, "the Persicary Beach and the Flower laden Bank," the motto, "A phoenix comes with dignified air," and the rest, owe one and all their origin to the unexpected test to which Chia Cheng submitted, on a previous occasion, Pao yü's literary abilities. But how did it come about they were actually adopted? You must remember that the Chia family had been, generation after generation, given to the study of letters, so that it was only natural that there should be among them one or two renowned writers of verses; for how could they ever resemble the families of such upstarts, who only employ puerile expressions as a makeshift to get through what they have to do? But the why and the wherefore must be sought in the past. The consort belonging to the Chia mansion had, before she entered the palace, been, from her infancy, also brought up by dowager lady Chia; and when Pao yü was subsequently added to the family, she was the eldest sister, and Pao yü the youngest child. The Chia consort, bearing in mind how that she had, when her mother was verging on old age, at length obtained this younger brother, she for this reason doted upon him with single love; and as they were besides companions in their attendance upon old lady Chia, they were inseparable for even a moment. Before Pao yü had entered school, and when 3 or 4 years of age, he had already received oral instruction from the imperial spouse Chia, from the contents of several books, and had committed to memory several thousands of characters; for though they were only sister and brother, they were like mother and child. And, after she had entered the palace, she was wont time and again to have letters taken out to her father and her cousins, urgently recommending them to be careful with his bringing up; that if they were not strict, he could not possibly become good for anything; and that if they were immoderately severe, there was the danger of something unpropitious befalling him; with the result, moreover, that his grandmother would be stricken with sorrow, and this solicitude on his account was never for an instant lost sight of by her. Hence it was that Chia Cheng, having, a few days back, heard his teacher extol him for his extreme abilities, he forthwith put him to the test on the occasion of their ramble through the garden; and though his compositions were not in the bold style of a writer of note, yet they were productions of their own family, and would, moreover, be instrumental when the Chia consort had her notice attracted by them, and come to know that they were devised by her beloved brother, in also not rendering nugatory the anxious interest which she had ever entertained on his behalf; and he therefore purposely adopted what had been suggested by Pao yü; while for those places for which on that day no devices had been completed, a good number were again subsequently composed to make up what was wanted. After the Chia consort had, for we shall now return to her, perused the four characters, she gave a smile. "The two words 'flower laden bank,'" she said, "are really felicitous; so what use was there for 'persicary beach'?" When the eunuch in waiting heard this observation, he promptly jumped off the craft on to the bank, and at a flying pace hurried to communicate it to Chia Cheng, and Chia Cheng instantly effected the necessary alteration. Section 41.